now.
Good morning, Southern Arizona. My name is Raul, and I'm your host of the very first episode of Southern Arizona Sports Talk. I'm extremely excited to be a part of the company and Live the Dream Media, and we're really going to focus on all the athletes in Southern Arizona. And with football season coming up, I thought it'd be a great idea to have one of the legends of football in general. He has coached all over the world. He is notorious for bringing programs that were 0-12 to be state championships. Three-time state champion. He is a legend for Sabino. He's a legend for Catalina Foothills, and he's had some couple stints coaching Italy, Germany, all over the place. So we're excited to have him, and cue the intro, and we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Alan Murdoch. For the past 20 years, I've been buying, fixing, and selling properties right here in Southern Arizona. And I want to buy your property. Whether it's a house, apartment, commercial building, or vacant land, regardless of the condition or the situation, I want to talk to you. When you sell to me, I pay cash and it's hassle-free. No repairs, no closing costs, and no commissions. If you have a property you don't want to deal with and you want a quick solution, call, text, or visit selltalon.com. Again, that's selltalon.com.
Discover the power of 88 Crime, where your anonymous tips are rewarded with cash.
When you call in anonymously with the tip, you are given a code. With the code and a password, you can walk into a bank and redeem your reward anonymously. If your anonymous tip results in a felony arrest, you can claim up to $2,500 cash reward.
Let's stop the silence on crime and strive for a safer community. For more information, please visit 88crime.org or call 88crime.
Copper Creek Cookies, Copper Creek Cookies, coppercreekcookies.net.
We can print anything on our soft vanilla logo cookies. We deliver them and other sweet treats locally. We are located at 4249 West Ina Road, Suite 121. Call us 520-300-1131. We bake smiles.
Copper Creek Cookies, Copper Creek Cookies, coppercreekcookies.net.
This show is sponsored by Jet Sports Training, building speed, agility, and power from youth to pro. They're Tucson's leading sports performance. Start your journey to greatness today with Jet Sporting. Check them out on Instagram, Jet Sporting, or their website, jetsporting.com.
There is.
Okay, guys, we are back with the absolute legend, Coach Jeff Scurran. How you doing, Coach?
I'm doing great this morning. How are you guys doing?
I'm excited, man. I'm grateful to have you on. So I really want to start this off because when we talked a couple days ago, you said some really cool things, mainly just there's bigger things than football. And before we start getting your career, what I really want you to talk about is all the charity work you've been up to, because you told me a couple weeks ago you were in Mexico. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about that first?
Well, I got kind of, hooked into doing this because I'm such a busy person in terms of the way I like to live my life. And in the off season, a friend of mine said, you're just such a, you're good at fundraising. Why don't you help us out, with these kids in Mexico? We have this charity. And so I went down there one time and raised a little bit of money, and I had such a wonderful time. The kids were great. They're so respectful, and we're talking, really soccer players starting at 5 and 6 years old. And at that time, that was my first group, and then it expanded to some battered women. We put together a softball team. And then we had a baseball team or two, and now I've got boxers on my list. Helped a lady who actually qualified to fight for the world championship, and it's just been an amazing ride, and it's so much fun helping kids, and I try and stay involved in that. And Nova Home Loans does a wonderful Miracle in the Barrio charity, and I stay involved with John Volpe and those guys, and I just enjoy doing that. I mean, I got into education because I like being around the kids, and same thing with coaching. That pulled me out of law school, and I've really never looked back. It's what I like to do, and so particularly now that don't have a team and a little bit bored with my time, it just seemed like a thing to re-energize myself with, and like I say, it's very rewarding, and I do a lot of good for other people, but it does a lot of good for my soul too.
That's awesome. So let's kind of start from the beginning. Who was Coach Scurran before you started coaching? Tell me about high school, college self, and if you had something to tell, like advice about what the future would look like, what would you tell your younger self?
Well, I like to say I like to, I had a few people that really influenced me, and one of them was my college head coach, Ray Graves at the University of Florida, who used to tell me all the time, just be yourself. If that's not good enough, life's going to be a struggle, and be you. And that's kind of what I did, and I've kind of modified that to tell kids to be the best version of yourself you could possibly be. And I was small, but I was quick, and grew up in kind of a tough neighborhood, and I learned to parlay those things into my athletic career. So I was the guy that never quit, and I was the guy that my size didn't matter, and if I wanted to jump into it, I did it, and I completed it, and I wanted to do a good job, and I learned to love not just winning, but I learned to love the process. And I think if there is a secret that for anybody out there that wants to understand winning, because I had an experience for 3 years with the U.S. Olympic Committee. For 7 years, I worked in the summers with the Utah Jazz in the NBA, and Jerry Sloan, the head coach there, was highly successful. And I think the lessons I learned real young, I think still hold there. Everything I saw, you can't be somebody else. You can't shove square pegs in the round holes. You got to be you, but you have to work to bring out those gifts that you have. And a lot of people don't see it because they just don't work at it. It's hard not to give up, and it's hard not to feel guilty, about, not guilty, but to feel, cheated about the things that other people have and you don't. But those are distractions. Those are things you just can't worry about. Take care of you, be the best version of you, help the people around you. The old Beatles song of Sergeant Pepper. Maybe some young people won't know that album. But Sergeant Pepper, there was a song, Ringo Starr, we all get by with a little help from our friends. And it's really true. I mean, you look at 90% of the biggest businesses, and they started with a Small Business Administration SBA loan. Or maybe they had a gift from a parent that helped them out. And, a lot of the silver spoon people, they really don't make it. And I don't think they ever have a feeling of satisfaction of having to climb that mountain. When I was at Sabino, the big message over the weight room door was the view from the summit is worth the effort. And if you don't buy into that, I just don't see how you're ever going to make it. A lot of people talk about the meme, that the will to win is not nearly as important as the will to work to win. And that process is what I found over the years is the golden strand. And my father was a salesman and a World War II literally hero. He was a medic. And I matter of fact, I was going through some stuff the other day, cleaning out parts of the house, and finding some of the letters of commendation for his medals and his Purple Heart. And here's a guy just from streets of Philadelphia, trained in the mountains of Colorado, sent out to North Africa, Sicily, and the spine of Italy up in the mountains, taking on these ridiculous battles and crawling out with gunfire and shells going around and dragging guys back, and unfortunately having to make decisions of life and death, because 3 or 4 guys out there, and who do you drag back, and you have to make the decision of that he went through doing that, but still went out and did his job. And reading about that, from his commanding officers, when they gave, you begin to get an idea that it's not just about you, it's about us, and that you in a group that even small people like my dad and I, physical stature small, we could have a big impact. And it might not be the way you wanted to, it might not be the way you planned, but these alleys, these rivers, these doors open up in life as you go if you just keep pushing. That's the hardest thing. You just keep pushing. And I try and bring that to when I coach athletic teams, and teach them a process, not just say the words, but to get them to believe that through a long process of that's hard work and unfortunately often painful. But The old no pain, no gain.
Yeah.
It wasn't just meant for the weight room. It's oftentimes it's a mental thing too. And we just got to keep breaking down those barriers. And if I can get the kids to believe in that, then my teams usually do pretty well.
That's awesome, coach. You said some really good things. Man, I learned some stuff from stuff you said right there. So a lot of people might not know that your career really didn't start in Arizona. You had a few stints before you ended up at CDO High School. Why don't you take us on that journey and what it was like to first start coaching and what made you start coaching and how you eventually ended up at CDO High School to start off your career for Arizona coaching?
Well, real quickly, I mean, I never saw myself as a coach. I grew up in a family with an older brother who is he's usually one of the smartest guys in the room, whatever room you walk in. And he had a very successful career as a doctor. He knew he wanted to be a doctor from a very young age. And in my family, if he was going to be the doctor, I was going to be the lawyer. That's just the way my parents saw the world. And going to college and things like that, even though we didn't have the money, it just never was anything else you just didn't think about. You went to school, you worked hard, you got the grades, and somehow the money would be there. And my dad worked hard; he was a vet, and my mom worked for the USO, and so we had the military benefits to go to school on the GI Bill, and fortunately, so we ended up at the University of Florida, and it's not where I wanted to go. Originally I wanted to go to Ohio State because my mom and my grandma broke a lot of barriers in their way back age, and they were both Buckeyes. And I was born in Ohio, and I always wanted to play for Ohio State. Shoot, I had a Buckeye football in my crib when I was born, and very very typical of Ohio boy. And but they didn't want me. I was too small, and they had their own people in Ohio, great football up there, high school football. And so I got a chance to walk on at the University of Florida. Probably should have gone to some of the smaller colleges, but I wanted to give that a try. And of course, once I got there with my family, leaving and quitting just wasn't an option. And so, I hung in there. I played the scout team, and 1 week you're Alabama, the next week you're Auburn, the next week you're Miami, the next week you're Florida State, next week you're Georgia, and you learn a lot of football that way. And I became pretty good at the craft of correcting plays on the play cards for my buddies on the scout team. And we formed a very tight unit, and I enjoyed that team aspect, even though we weren't the team. But we became a team within a team. And fortunately, my coaches recognized that. And after my third surgery, and kind of 3 strikes you're out, with playing, and then I was going to have to go home because we didn't have the money without their help at the university. And the head coach came to me and said, "Heck, you're just a coach on the field anyway. I'm going to keep you as kind of my aide or assistant, and you can keep your money, and you're going to work with us." And that's how I became a coach. And despite the long hours and horrible working conditions as a graduate assistant, basically you're a gopher, and go for this and go for that. And next thing you know, I was out there, coaching and breaking down film and doing all that stuff. And went to law school like my parents wanted. But an opportunity arose in downtown Atlanta, Georgia, and to be a teacher and coach, and I jumped at it because that's what I wanted to do. And my parents were very, very happy with me. They never criticized me. They told me don't look back, and I followed that advice. And I had some good success, and then realized that I had to get an advanced degree, and that brought me out to Tucson in 1971. And I went to graduate school here and got my advanced degree in psychology. And it was at that time, University of Arizona was one of the top schools in the world, not the nation, in psychology and counseling. And that's why I picked this here. And I was fortunate enough to get an academic scholarship, and came out and did my work, and then went back to work at the University of Nevada, and had a chance to get a job at coaching high school at Lake Tahoe. Wanted to live in that area, and so we jumped at that. And our doors open and opportunities happen, and my wife and I, we've never been shy about jumping into those types of things. And next thing you know, I'm living in Lake Tahoe, and I'm coaching and teaching and starving to death because the cost of living there is so high. and started teaching night school and started teaching adjunct at a local college and building homes, strangely enough. And we hit it we hit it kind of big. And that took us on a vacation around the world and overseas, and ran into a person there whose buddy was a principal at a totally failing high school with football up in Oregon in the Dalles. I said, sure, I'd love to jump back into coaching because business has gotten so successful that I'd kind of gotten out of it and had to because we're just making too much money. And I learned that money wasn't everything, and I missed the coaching and I missed the kids, frankly. And so when I got home, I figured I'd never hear from this guy again. Next thing that happens is him and the principal are calling me, and I'm working. Next couple months later, I'm working up in Oregon at coaching again. And we took a team from 0-20 and went in one season to the semifinals. And that's kind of how it started. And next thing you know, I'm getting calls from all over the place to come and help them turn around their team. I did that with a team in suburban Portland, and we loved Oregon, but the rain was just too much. And I got a call from an old friend, Gary Bernardi, who was an assistant for Arizona coach Larry Smith, and he said there's a job down here, and my buddy's the principal, and we'd like you to take a look at it. And that was at Sabino, but I couldn't get it because I wasn't a member of the bargaining unit. So I came down, I took a job at CDO and got that program a little bit turned around. They had been real, very good, but they'd kind of fallen on hard times for a couple of years, and got that turned around. And next thing you know, the job opened at Sabino, and I guess karma jumped in. And as soon as I got to Sabino, I think they'd won one game, and it took us by the second year, we were 12-1, and by the third year, we were 14-0 and state champs and nationally ranked. And from there, it just kind of took off. And except for living in Europe 3 times, we've been in Tucson since 1984, and this is home. And I've had a lot of opportunities to go back to college, and maybe if the right guy, with the right college with the right guy that I could have learned from or something for the right amount of money, because people forget it's last 15 or so years that college coaches have been making this kind of big money, particularly assistants. But as a high school head coach at Sabino, and particularly with my consulting work, because I've started a good consulting business, I was making a lot more money coaching high school football than any college assistant in the country, any. And these offers were coming in, and we were going to have to take a big pay cut and have my family move again. By that time, we had kids, and we loved Tucson. Frankly, we just loved it here, and I liked the school I was working at. When I got to Sabino, the principal, the late Dr. Carl Roberts, was taught me so much. I can't begin to tell you how great it was to have a mentor like that. I had a couple mentors up in the Phoenix area that are both passed away, particularly Carl Kiefer, that was at Mountain Point, and one of the 2 or 3 states winningest coaches, the famous Jess Parker from Mesa Mountain View, and those were the 2 big guys at the time. And when I came in and had some instant success, those guys took me under their wing, and I'll never forget it. And that they told me all the time, because I'd ask them, I'd watch what they would do, and I want to imitate them. They'd say, no, be you, and just like my college coaches told me. And so when you get repetitions of things like that, like I was telling you before the show, just be the best version of yourself you could be. And if that's not good enough, you're probably in the wrong job. And so I've left jobs after 1 year just because of that reason. I was just in the wrong place. And for my family or the job situation, or in some places, people don't care about winning sometimes. It's incredible. And a lot of people don't understand how sports, for many, many men and women, boys and girls, learning their path to success through sports or through music or through art or drama or through industrial arts or auto shop and plumbing or whatever it is, you karate, it just doesn't matter. You could get in there and learn how to be successful. You could take that path and use it in so many other areas. And frankly, that's what I love doing. I mean, I love the coaching, don't get me wrong, but it's mentoring kids and being around the kids. It keeps me young, it keeps me vibrant, it keeps me healthy. And, and most of all, every day is something new. I mean, there's new problems to solve every day. And that's what you are when you become a head coach. That's what you become. People think it's about winning games. No, it's about saving lives. It's about turning around one kid at a time. It's about teaching these kids to be the best version of themselves, and that their hard work will pay off. It might not happen tomorrow, but it's a steep mountain to climb. But like I told you before, the view from the summit is definitely worth the effort.
That's awesome. Like I said, I like how you said that coaches they're not so focused on winning. They should be more focused on saving lives. For me, I've known a lot of people that sports saved their lives. One of my main goals with this show is to tell people stories to give people going through the same thing hope. You said something when you started this conversation. Said something really interesting. You said you had 3 surgeries in college. Can you tell us a little bit about that and just how you overcame all those obstacles of coming back from surgeries? I've had history, like I've blown out my shoulder. Right now, I'm actually dealing with a broken back. So I know how hard it is to build yourself back up. Why don't you tell us a little bit how you did that after 3 surgeries in college?
Well, I tell you, it's so funny, because of that, when I was in town, Lute Olson, my wife taught with his daughter, Jody Brasi, who has just retired recently as the wonderful principal at Catalina Foothills. And so I knew Coach Olson through that. And he used to tell me all the time, he said, "Tell me how you do what you do. I got to learn from you." And I go, "Are you kidding me, Coach? I lean on everything you say. I watch everything you do." And so I got to be, because of my background, I was a little bit a piece of Steve Kerr's rehab when he blew his leg out in college, and particularly for the mental aspect of that, and the grind that it takes. And as you have to have, again, this is all about who's mentoring you. And I had a surgeon that took care of me twice, whose daughter won a bunch of gold medals in swimming in the Olympics, and with an interesting name, Hogshead. And you never forget that one. And he told me, "This is just, Coach, coming to practice is just rehab. It's just like going to rehab is same as going to practice. That's what it is. This is your practice today. This is what you have to do." And that kind of sunk into me. And that was, it was the winning the game was winning that day. And that's a big thing for me, by the way. One of my secrets to success, if you will, is, we go to practice. I don't need to win the game Friday night. I need to win practice today. That's what I have to do. When I have this drill, I need to win this drill. And that's part of winning the practice. And it's that step-by-step method that I learned. And I learned that through going to rehab and doing the work. It's a job. It's a practice. That just happens to be your job today. Now, as a scout keeper, I got to tell you that there's no coaches coming in and patting you on the back. There's no reporters coming in and saying, "Are you going to be ready for the Auburn game?" That just doesn't happen in that world. If people saw the movie Rudy, that's kind of almost a glamorized version of what it's like. You're not a special character, but you have a role. And one of the things that I'm very proud of in my career is I've always embraced my role. And if when I was a teacher coach, I was a good teacher. I wasn't one of those teachers that rolled out the movie projector, and worked on football plays. I'd stay up all night to work on football plays. I was going to be a good teacher, and I wasn't going to have anybody coming in my room and complaining. And when that principal came in and did his assessment of me as a teacher, their observation, I was going to win that day. And I wanted the kids to respect me enough as a teacher, so when that principal or administrator walked in the door, they understood that Coach Scurran was under the microscope here, and they would give the best version of themselves too, which is kind of cool. And I think, it's like say, My wife told Greg Hansen once in an interview about, this is after I'd turned around. USA Today had done a story about a long time ago about I was the only coach in the United States on any level of football that they could find that had taken on 3 different 0-win teams and put them in the playoffs in their first year. And my wife and Greg asked my wife, does coach, what's it like, being around coach, is he that way with everything? And her answer was, Coach Scurran has only failed at 3 things in his life: retirement 3 times. And I think that's true. I like to stay busy, and I like challenges. And after all, I think as humans, we are problem solvers. That's how we survive. That's how we grow. That's how we get better. That's how you make your team, frankly. That's how you make your team better. You just got to solve problems.
Hey, Jeff, I got a question for you. I'm the guy
Sure.
in the director box. When you come to these programs, is there a consistent theme to the program's failure or losses? Or, is there something that you can go, hey, there's a correlation in some form in each program that you have seen and been like, hey, we got to attack this? Or has it been different at every single program?
Excellent question. Excellent. That's one question, by the way, that I don't think I've ever gotten before, and yet I think it's one of the most important ones I've ever been asked. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
Let me expand that a little bit. I've been a consultant in over 1,000 high schools and colleges, and I got to the point where I could walk in the door. Just, I get there early. I walk around for 15, 20 minutes. Often, of course, it's a high school. They got to give me a guide. And then the coach or the principal or somebody will show me around the school. And within an hour or so, I could tell you exactly I don't know anything about their record. And I could tell you if they win or lose. And I could pretty much tell you why. There's a certain to borrow the French, there's a certain je ne sais quoi that you can just feel. It hangs in the air. It's a losing mentality, and it's not just in football. It's in everything they do. There's ones that are just permeate the whole school. There's others that's just they're winning in other programs, but some programs they just got that attachment. It's like an ugly creature has taken a bite out of their fanny and won't let go. And how you solve that nut. I went into a city in Wisconsin, and I actually did 17 different clinics over the years in this school in Wisconsin. And I was sitting in a cafe. I got there early and went for lunch because I wasn't supposed to be there till 1:00. And sat it down there, and the people walked in the building. And I walked in the building and sit down having lunch. And the waitress is her husband is the cook, and they own the place. And they come over and they say, "Hey, we don't recognize you." Of course, it's a locals only place. And I say, "We don't recognize you. What are you doing?" And I explained to them what I was doing in town. They go, "Oh, that football team's never going to win. There's something in the water here." They weren't being sarcastic either. They really believed there was something in the water that led that this team just couldn't win and never won. And 2 years later, they were state champions.
Wow.
And it's you just don't do it by yourself. There's no magic pill. It's a little bit like a cancer, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. And it just kind of permeates. You can't see it, but if you got the right tools, you could test it. You could know it. In my case, I could just recognize it. It's the way they walk. It's the way they think. It's the way they talk to each other. It's constant of putting down. It's their old equipment that nobody takes care of it. You walk into the locker room and it's dirty, and you could see the attitude. There's no self ownership. There's an endemic thing and yet it's also systemic. It's part of the whole culture. And so when people interview me and they talk to me, it's, if they're not willing to examine their own culture and the way they do business, I can't take that job. So I'll be sitting at lunch a lot at these schools, colleges. It's real interesting in colleges. And they're watching what I'm doing, and the athletic director will come up to me at a college, and he'll sit right down next to me at lunch, and he'll say, "What would it take?" Because this is how they have to put it. to make it legal because they got a coach under contract. So they say, what would it take for a school like us to hire a coach like you? Because that's not the same as saying, hey, how could we hire you? You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So they use that administrative ease, we call it, their language. And what would it take for a school like us to hire a coach like you? And my answer to a lot of these ADs, because I'm a very blunt and direct kind of guy. So my answer to these guys is a coach like me would never lurk at a school like this.
Very straight.
There's not enough money. There's not enough money for me to go through because I can't do this by myself. Now, if you guys are willing to take this on, I've had one of the biggest schools in Southern Arizona approach me with some very, very wealthy people. I'm talking about doctors, lawyers, major league athletes, racetrack owners. These people came up to me and said, hey, would you come in and help us turn around the school? Coach, we'll provide all the financial resources you need. I said, if you can get the school or the district to answer any one of these 3 questions correctly, and they're always different, by the way, once I take a look, if you can, one of these 3 questions, we got to sit down and talk about this. And they pick up the phone the next day, they call me back and they go, how did you know? It's that same old, we can't. Talking to you guys here now, it still gets me fired up, that this BS of we can't. No, we don't want to. That's what they need to say. We don't want to. We don't want to try. Now, you tell me what kind of educational message that is, right? Let's start at the top with that message and see why we're losing here, right?
That's awesome. So one of the things is I want to ask, what attracts you to these teams that are 0-11, 0-10? Like, what gets you fired up to go there and be like, I'm going to be the one that changes this?
Tell me what would turn you on more? Going in and taking a 0-win team to the playoffs or a state championship, or going in and taking over a superpower and continuing what someone else built? What sounds more attractive to you?
Oh, the story's better with a 0-win team. Oh.
Well, and you know what? I'm the guy that walks in the door and said, guys, if we can do this, what a great story. You will have a lifetime memory and it will change your life. Everything you do will bounce off of this one season. But here's what you got to do. Here's what you got to work. And I could see in their eye if they can get that or if they don't get that. And there better be, for a football program, there better be 20, 25, 30 kids that get that glint in their eye, get that twinkle, or partner, you ain't making it. It ain't going to happen. You're in the wrong place. Football is a game of things. I mean, you need facilities, you need equipment, and this, everybody's gotten faster and stronger, and the contact is harder and all that. If you don't have the right equipment, you just butcher yourself up at practice. That's what happened to us at Pima. We no scholarships, no depth. That's a college recruiting phrase. That's why back in the days when they didn't have the NIL and the transfer portal and that type of thing, you had better develop and manage, because you're going to get kids injured. I mean, look at the NFL now. How many teams have their quarterback, their $20, $30 million a year man, their Superman? How many teams have that guy go the whole season without injured? I think the answer is 0.
Yeah.
You've got to have people, you've got to develop, you've got to, and it takes resources, it takes things, and people have to be willing to roll up their sleeves and go to work. And that means not just you as the coach. That means not just the kids in the weight room and the practice field, but the parents have to dedicate. And that school from the top down better be willing to recognize what it takes for your situation to be successful and support you as the coach. And that's where the rubber meets the road. And unfortunately, in Southern Arizona, we're not on that track. And you see the result of it. And you see, 1 or 2 breakout schools. But other than that, I just feel really bad for the kids here of because there was in the 80s and 90s. We're never going to be. Look, we don't have the enrollment. We don't have the numbers here. There's close to 6 million people in Phoenix. We're barely 1 million people in Tucson. We don't, and with this open transfer portal now, with kids going to every school they want to do, you're going to get 15 schools in the Phoenix area. They're going to have 15, 20 Division I players. Shoot, we don't get 5, 8 Division I players down here in a season at all the schools, let alone go to Scottsdale, Saguaro, or Chandler, or Hamilton, or one of those dogs, and they have 10, 15 kids that are going Division I. How can you compete at the big school level with the numbers against you like that? And the answer is you can't, because it's all a numbers game. I mean, there are analytics now that we understand this kind of stuff, and we know you're going to get kids hurt. And if if your school's not going to supply you the equipment and all that, so you can go full speed at practice, which you need to do, but not hit each other, to hit equipment, to hit bags, to have proper. I mean, now the Guardian helmets. Come on, you can wear Guardian helmets in an NFL game now. Those are the outside padded helmets. Mm-hmm. Last school I was at, they thought that was they didn't think that was a necessity. How could a thing that helps safety not be a necessity if you value those kids? And yeah, we had brand new helmets. We had everything. They put in a lot of money, but at a certain point, Yeah. And that's just now. That's not how it works in sports. Yeah. How much money does it take to develop a Olympic athlete?
Almost
Look at the team of coaches and trainers and doctors and meds and family and travel and transportation. I mean, you see the lowest level pro golfer. They're probably spending $250,000 a year just getting around to tournaments. If they don't have a sponsor, or if they're not born with a silver spoon in their mouth, they're not on that path. Do you see what I mean? It literally takes a village. It really does.
Yeah. That's awesome. Like I said, you're saying some really, really good, important things. To kind of bring it back a little bit here, what was the transition like going from high school to college? Because I don't know if many people know this as well. You're the first Pima College football coach.
Well, fortunately for me, I'd had that happen a couple times. And early in my career, I went back and forth, started at University of Florida working there, and then, just as a low level, but still got to see what was going on. Then went to high school, and then was an intern, here under Dick Weber when I got my master's degree way back when, and then went to University of Nevada, and then went back to high school. And so going back and forth between high school and college was something I did. And there's attractions to each one. I mean, obviously coaching a higher level of talent in college is a lot of fun. But on the other hand, coaching kids in high school is I mean, for the most part, first of all, you have a lot more control of high school kids. Yeah, you don't see them near as much, but you really can if you get out of your classroom, get out in the hallway, you really, if you make it your business, be in the lunchroom with them during the day, you really can see them before and after school. So I think a high school coach has a lot more impact on lives. Not that you can't in college. I'm real close to a lot of my Pima College guys to this day, but you have a lot more impact in high school, I think. And each one has its thing. There's nothing like walking out that tunnel with 70, 80,000 screaming idiots out there in the stands. That's something that's. That's just, that never gets old. But you know what? That's 10 seconds, a week. And of course, in my situation, I never got to do that in college. I got to do that as a coach, but I never got to do that as a player. And I just, back in those days, it was the Rudy era. 65 got to suit for a home game, 52 got to travel. And, back in no scholarship limits, we're looking at 200 kids at practice. I wasn't on that level of players. I was like the old Rocky movie. My bag was on the hook outside the locker room. I wasn't in the in crowd like most of the scout team guys. We were B class citizens. And fortunately for us, we had a head coach that understood our role, which made it, tolerable. And, but it's just a process you go through, and your coaching in college it's fun, and the talent level's higher and all that. But so is the amount of hours. You're working on completely different sets of problems. The kids aren't home. You're not dealing with parents, which is good and bad because nothing. I tell you what, cooperative parents are like, they're just like gold. It's like the best block in football is the double team. When the coach and the parent works together, it's the best way to handle, the kid. And when the kid, the parent, and the coach are all on the same page, that's a smooth sailing operation. That's a lot of fun. And I work real hard to make that kind of stuff happen. And so, it's there are advantage and disadvantage to each, but it's football wise, it's the same. It really is the same. Obviously, technically, you can get into the depth a lot more, and with college, because you have more time. You got guys that know what they're doing. Their football IQ is a lot higher, and but in high school, I think there's a certain fun to it. At practice, I've always been the guy, no matter how serious it is, we could be the championship game. It's Wednesday, our last full practice before the Friday night game, championship game. And if something happens and it's funny, you know what you do? You laugh. It's funny. It doesn't mean we have to get out there and let practice go, get away from us. But if that was funny, it's funny. We just got to stay focused and get back to work and do our thing. You got to be, I always say, let's err on the side of being a human being.
That's awesome. So now let's talk about a little about your career coaching worldwide. What's the biggest difference you've seen since for football in the United States compared to outside the country?
Well, football is one of our main sports here. Football, baseball, basketball, track. Those are the big sports. And over in Europe, football, I think when I was in Germany, where there's over 400 teams playing in the German football league. And so people have no idea. It's American football, excuse me, is what it's called in the rest of the world, except for Australia. Australia, they have Australian rules football that you've probably seen on TV. Where the guy in the funny hat that does this when they make the field goal. That's Australian rules football. So they call it gridiron. But in the rest of the world, it's American football. Because football, F-U-T-B-O-L, of course, is soccer, which is the sport of the masses of the world and the most popular sport in the world. But in Germany, the second most popular sport is Formula One. Basketball, as you saw in the Olympics, basketball in Europe is huge. Basketball and very, very, very good. Matter of fact, they're doing a much better job now of developing their athletes in basketball than we do, because they practice and they coach. They just don't. Now in the United States, and you've seen stuff that the good pro coaches like Steve Kerr and those guys, they're all talking about now. It's gotten out of hand with club teams. And yes, there are some excellent club coaches. Don't get me wrong, but most of them is just playing game. And when do you develop? When do you practice? When do you work? And when do you develop those other skills? Because basketball is a team sport. And a lot less guys in football, but still a team sport. So people have come up in the world in those, but it's not the same. It's not near as important. And I'm coaching pro ball, and if they have, if we had less than 2,000 at one of my Sabino games, the athletic would come in and say, "Hey, coach, what's going on? We need the money." And yet if I have 2,000 at a game in Germany, it was like, whoa, what a great crowd. It's a different level of sport, but the dedication of the guys they're coaching is insane. And the sportsmanship is wonderful. The guys, because the fraternity of people playing is so tight, because it is a minor sport, and that's a real lesson in being humble and and learning to have to sell the program wherever you go and what you do, and you don't go over there just to coach. You go over there to be in a different culture and to learn and to see and to travel a little bit. And it's the whole package of what you do. And now football is in fact growing. It's getting good. People are going to be real surprised in the Olympics. They're way ahead of us in flag football, way ahead of us. And wait till you see how good their females are at playing flag football. Now, we're going to bring in better athletes. I know that. And I, for one, like the European players that I know, they don't want to see the pro flag guys. They want to see the NFL guys come down and play, just like they want to see the NBA guys play in the Olympics. They want to play against the best. Their attitude is so amazing. It's not like yes, they do want to win the gold medal, but they want to win the gold medal by beating the NBA guys in the Olympics, like the Croatians and the French almost did this year, right? That's what they want. So don't be surprised when you see this in the LA Olympics in 28. Don't be surprised at how good these people are, particularly the French athletically. The French are insane. Of course, they've been using athletes from the North African continent and where the French had colonies and they've been for years now. And so they get athletes from French Guiana, they get from North Africa and all over the Caribbean, and it's very interesting to see what's happening there athletically. And like I say, if you tuned in to the Olympics, you could see it. I mean, Europe is multicultural now, and the athletics show it too. And so you're getting this great picture of it. In the Olympics, people are going to be, we're going to go in there, we're going to rock them, sock them. It ain't going to happen that way. That's not what they're going to see. They're going to see very, very competitive flag football. And yes, we would any level, we would dominate them on tackle football still. But like the ladies there have been playing tackle football for over 20 years. And it's good. It's not shabby football. And the dedication is, I think, of the people that play it. Because remember, they got to pay a lot of money out of their own pockets to play. There's no athletic scholarships.
So real quick, So real quick, one of the questions I did have,
Hey, we got to go to break real quick. It's time for the break time. We got to take care of those sponsors.
Got to make the money.
Got to make the money.
Yep.
So we'll be right back here. See you guys soon.
Hi, I'm Alan Murdoch. For the past 20 years, I've been buying, fixing, and selling properties right here in Southern Arizona. And I want to buy your property. Whether it's a house, apartment, commercial building, or vacant land, regardless of the condition or the situation, I want to talk to you. When you sell to me, I pay cash and it's hassle-free. No repairs, no closing costs, and no commissions. If you have a property you don't want to deal with and you want a quick solution, call, text, or visit selltalon.com. Again, that's selltalon.com.
Discover the power of 88 Crime, where your anonymous tips are rewarded with cash.
When you call in anonymously with a tip, you are given a code. With the code and a password, you can walk into a bank and redeem your reward anonymously. If your anonymous tip results in a felony arrest, you can claim up to $2,500 cash reward.
Let's stop the silence on crime and strive for a safer community. For more information, please visit 88crime.org or call 88crime.
Copper Creek Cookies, Copper Creek Cookies, coppercreekcookies.net.
We can print anything on our soft vanilla logo cookies. We deliver them and other sweet treats locally. We are located at 4249 West Ina Road, Suite 121. Call us 520-300-1131. We bake smiles.
Copper Creek Cookies, Copper Creek Cookies, coppercreekcookies.net.
and we are back with Coach. Coach, so you've been around for 50 years of coaching, which is insane. But is there one team that kind of hits home a little bit more? Like, I didn't know if this team was going to make it, but they pushed through and overachieved what they could.
Boy, I tell you, I could, even at Sabino, people forget that, we weren't very good when I got there. And it didn't happen overnight. When I first got there, we started 3-1, and we lost a excellent quarterback in our first game, Todd Brown, who's now the head baseball coach at the University of New Mexico.
Yeah,
and excellent leader, and good. We're still good. We're still real good friends. He still picks up the phone and calls the old coach every now and then. He says, "Coach, I know it's baseball, but here, help me with this one. I love it." And anyway, we ended up winning a couple more games with a sophomore quarterback, Tom Brown, no relation. And 2 years later, that same guy, the sophomore, came in and took us to the state championship, undefeated and nationally ranked in USA Today. And so, that first time, that first state title, that first time you see yourself in USA Today, and we were the first team in Arizona history ever to be nationally ranked in USA Today, and I don't think you ever forget that. Going to Santa Rita, which hadn't won in 2 years. And those guys were just fun to coach. We had a lot of athletes, but they were academically that we weren't cutting it, but we had to deal with some off the field issues. But the kids cooperated, and they wanted to win, and they wanted to win bad enough to where they would start doing the schoolwork. And then when they started doing the schoolwork, it kind of became, hey, this ain't bad. I could do this stuff. And that's what you want. That's exactly what you want. And that ride at Santa Rita, I think we were, I don't even 24 and 6 in my 3 years there from 0 and, 0 and 20 and 1 and 19. Actually, I think that's what it was. And, and then Catalina Foothills, with Rhett Rodriguez, from 0 and 10 and with a freshman quarterback and going to the playoffs and then eventually the state championship was just those rides. I can't begin to tell you. There's a couple of my teams at Sabino with Kevin Amadon was our team captain, and we were. They moved us. We were 8 students too big to be a 4A. They moved us up to 5A, which was then the biggest school in the state. And everybody, and I was supposed to retire. We just won state in 4A again, and I'd already announced my retirement. And then some people opened their mouths and start saying, "Oh, he don't want to coach in the big schools and stuff like that." So I couldn't. I just. Ego got the best of me, and I said, "Screw this! I'm going to coach." And I went to the kids, and we made a pact. And that group, like I say, that was Kevin Abaddon. He's now the principal of Sabino, and going back to the alma mater and done really well. He's great principal, not good. He's great principal. And matter of fact, I'm going to see him tonight at the Sabino's opening game. Be with him on the sidelines, we went undefeated to the semifinals. We had to play the number 5 team in the nation, Desert Vista, and we were up in Chandler in front of 18,500, and we beat them, and we beat them good. And I remember their quarterback, who ended up playing for the 49ers, was on the sidelines with the Tennessee coach, University of Tennessee, back when they were the power in the nation. Philip Fulmer was his name, and we knocked, and their coach comes up. Philip Fulmer, the coach of Tennessee, comes up to me after the game and said, "Your kids, your staff, you guys, I wouldn't have believed this if I hadn't seen it. I've never seen a team so with less athletes overcome so much, and you guys just took it to them the whole game." And he said, you get experiences like that all along in coaching. I was up in Oregon, and they hadn't won any games in 2 years. And they had the game the Friday night before the school started, and people were, in town were all buzzing and crazy, and they came out, supported the school, standing room only, and here's this new guy, and it was nothing to 0-0 at halftime. And I go in the locker at halftime, and the kids go sit down, and they go sit, and they're all crying and stuff, and I go, "What's wrong?" And they go, "Well, this is where coach comes in and yells at us." I go, "What? No, we got work to do here, guys. We're in this game. We got a chance to win this game." And they just light up, and we take it to them. We win the game 16-0. And after the game, they put me on their shoulders. They carry off. Nobody leaves the stadium. I mean, you get moments like that in your career, and you think about it. To this day, I'll be sitting at home watching TV. And there'll be this great comeback or this underdog overachieving, and I just still get tears in my eyes. I can't tell you how much those moments mean, and you never get that when you're the top dog. That's part of the reason why I ended up leaving Sabino and taking on Pima College. I'll never forget my first and last games at Pima. They because of my big high school reputation, somebody decided to give us brand new school, almost all freshmen playing. And of course, a lot of them were kids that had me for a year of practice, because it takes, you got that year trial startup period. And so we'd been together, but we hadn't played a game. A lot of these kids hadn't played since high school. I had 17 of my former Semino players on the team. The Sunnyside kids, the Amphi kids, these kids came together like a team, and they gave us the defending national champion in our opening team. Now, who does that? Who does that to a first-year program? And yet that was the schedule. And so what do? We said, hey, guys, we can bitch and moan about this. We can go out and win the game. And we beat them 28-20 in front of a packed house at Santa Rita High School, a game I'll never forget. My last game at Pima, a nationally televised bowl game in Texas, and we're 40-point underdogs. And through a very, very unselfish strategy that we had to employ if we were going to stand any chance, because they were just full scholarship school. They were just better than us. I mean, football is king in Texas, and you know the kind of talent they had. But we kind of hid the ball. We played the clock. We didn't turn the ball over. We executed great. A lot of gutsy individual performances, and we beat them on our last drive at the end to win the game 10-7. That's what I wrote a book about. And it's you get those moments, and you'll never forget them your whole life. They're just like your children. They're like those moments that and really, you know, that's what I've in my old age. That's what I kind of come to determine. The life is about moments. It really is, and not just living them and forgetting them, grabbing onto those memories and using those memories to catapult you to what you want to do in any phase of your life. I mean, I can't do anything about the fact that I'm in the fourth quarter. I can't do anything about that. That's just a fact of living. But what I can do is I can make sure that this fourth quarter is one hell of a ride. You see what I mean?
Love it. So we're starting to get close on time, and I just want to ask one last question. When it's all said and done, what do you want to be remembered for?
Oh, I want to be remembered as this kind of metaphor. I want to be the pebble tosser. I want to be the guy that picked up the little pebbles. Those are kids. Those are people. And I want to pick up those pebbles and I want to throw them out in the pond and then watch those ripples go to some distant shore and where they land. And I want to be the guy that gave them the impetus or was something in their life that made them reach that far distant shore. And everybody says, well, what is that shore? And it reminds me of the movie where Jack Palance in the cowboy movie where, you know, it's just one thing. You know, there's one thing in life that's important. And everybody says, well, what is that one thing? That's up to you. That's you. You know, that's your choice. But I want to be the guy that helped you, you know, get to that, you know, to get to that point. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
That's if anything, the winning, don't get me wrong, the winning is wonderful. And I wouldn't be sitting here. I wouldn't be a consultant for businesses and making my living now doing stuff like that if it wasn't for the winning. I understand that. But it's those personal relationships. I mean, I got, you know, close to the limit of friends on Facebook. 2/3 of them are coaches and players and students. You know, come on, that's the reward right there.
That's awesome. Coach, thank you so much for being the first guest here on the brand new talk show. I really appreciate all your time. Shoot, from the hour we talked, I've learned so much just from listening to you speak. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me, and good luck on this show because I think what you guys are doing is really cool. Really cool.
Awesome.
Thank you. All right, Raul. So he's out, and we've got 3 minutes left. So we've got the season coming up. So what did you think of the talent at the Marana High School yesterday in the sports programs?
I think they have a really good leader in Coach Stewart. I think people are going to be surprised for what they have had. Every student has the right mindset going. And yeah, I think they might be the dark horse. I'm excited to see what they do against South Point.
Yeah, it was interesting yesterday when we were talking to the kids. They all had like the same kind of like chip on their shoulder about the games that happened last year, especially with the Higley one.
Yeah,
that was really interesting.
Higley and Mountain View has been the ones they were looking forward to the most.
Yeah, it was the Mountain View game, man. I went to that, and I went there with a lot of confidence. I was like, oh yeah, that boot's gonna stay, and then it didn't. And the Mountain View Lions ran over the Marana Tigers, like physically, like they ran over. There was no razzle dazzle in their strategy or anything like that. But I know that Marana's playing South Point week 1.
I'm excited to see that. We're gonna have Coach Stewart on in 2 weeks, and to let you guys know too, we're gonna have Tucson High as our highlight school of the week next week. Gonna be out there interviewing some of their guys as well.
Yeah, this is exciting, man. You having fun?
I love this so far. I mean, I'm just learning doing interviews. I'm a coach too. Like I love coaching baseball, so hearing what he has to say, I'm gonna use some of the stuff.
That to recap that question I had asked him about the correlation between the losing programs. That was interesting, huh?
Yeah,
because I've never gotten a chance to ask somebody that.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have we seen a guy that went and has teams that never won a game, then all of a sudden state champion?
Yeah, it's crazy to hear. It really was. I was gonna ask him too if like the reading scores and stuff were correlating with the sports programs and stuff like that too, because you think about a lot of the bad schools. I think we talked about it before. The kind of schools struggling, the sports programs for the most part are still kind of up in the air. So
low in education too, a little bit.
Yeah, man. So we're up on the dot, man. So we're gonna head out of here.
Awesome.
What do you think?
Awesome. Thank you guys. Get ready for next week. We're grinding, trying to be the best talk show out here. Thank you guys.